here, and this is kind of an odd video for me to post on my channel, but I'm actually making this for a friend. She requested it, and I'm just getting used to using my camera. So I thought, why not make it? And if it's half decent, at the end, I'll share it with you guys. So anyway, the title of this video is How I Sleep Trained My Baby. I want to start by saying, first of all, that I am in no way, shape, or form an expert in this subject. I'm not trained in it. I'm actually a first-time mom, and really the only experience that I have is that I went through it myself, and I went through it twice. I don't think that sleep training is for everyone. I don't think it works for every baby, and I don't think that all babies need it. I do really believe that there are babies out there that just learn how to sleep on their own. But for us, it wasn't the case. When my baby got to 5 months, he was still waking up every 2 hours. I was breastfeeding him on demand. I was exhausted. He was exhausted. My husband was exhausted. It was just getting too hard for us to manage. I just wanted to wait until he was at least 6 months, because in my mind I would know that, okay, he's 6 months old, he no longer needs to eat through the night anymore. So I guess that's the first point I'm making. You have to wait until your baby is ready. There are some videos out there on YouTube about sleep training your baby when they're, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 months, but personally, I don't agree with this. Your baby still needs to eat through the night until they're at least 6 months old. So for me, starting at 6.5 months was kind of the ideal situation. So what is sleep training? Well, the word itself is kind of an umbrella term for any methods that you use to teach your baby to sleep through the night. Some people just think it's the flat out, like the cry it out method. And to me, it's more of a system. But basically, sleep training to me is you taking steps to train your baby to fall asleep. So even like having a bedtime routine where you give them a bath at a certain time, you read them a story, and you do things in a certain order until they fall asleep, that to me is sleep training. But right now I'm going to go over my sleep training method that I used that did involve some crying that got my baby to sleep through the night. And basically all it is letting your baby cry in small intervals until they learn to fall asleep. And I think that's the #1 reason that babies don't sleep through the night. And I'll just talk about it in terms of my own baby. So for my baby, he learned how to sleep by sucking on my breast or on a bottle and drinking. So to him, if he woke up in the middle of the night, he thought that the only way that he could fall back asleep if he was exhausted would be to drink milk from either the breast or a bottle. So I taught him that, and I think that's why babies, when they wake up in the middle of the night, they just freak out. It's because they're exhausted and they don't know how to fall asleep. So what I had to do is I had to teach him how to just fall asleep on his own, so that if he goes to turn over in his crib in the middle of the night and he kind of wakes up a little bit, he can just get comfortable again and fall asleep on his own. I picked 5-minute intervals, and this is how I started, and this is what I did both times. So right now I'm just going to go over exactly what I did, and then I'll just give a little bit of a summary at the end. Okay, so night #1. So my husband and I picked a night, and we said, okay, we're going to do this now, and see how it goes. What I did was, we did his bedtime routine the exact same way we always did. So we gave him a bath at a certain time. I think we bumped it a little bit earlier. I think we gave him a bath at 7 o'clock. And then after the bath, we put lotion on him. We put his pajamas on. The lights in his room were dim. And then I sat in the rocking chair with him, and I breastfed him. But I had a little lamp on next to the chair, and I sat him a bit more upright than I normally do to kind of try to keep him awake. So instead of singing to him softly and rocking him, or reading to him softly and rocking him as I fed him, I sat him up a little bit and I talked to him and kind of stimulated him as he was eating. So then instead of falling asleep on the breast, when he was full, he just kind of pushed off my breast. And he started to get a little bit fussy because he's probably thinking, okay, why aren't I asleep? So what I did was I picked him up nice and high on my shoulder so that he wouldn't go for the breast, and I just rubbed his back. I walked over towards his crib. Oh, first to turn the little light off, I walked over towards his crib and I said to him, okay, Wilson, this is a new thing for you. You're going to learn how to sleep on your own. I love you so much. You're so smart and you can do this, and it's going to be good for everybody. And here's your teddy bear. And I just laid him down. I gave him his teddy bear, and he was already starting to cry and get sooky. So I gave him his teddy bear, and then I just walked out the door and closed the door over. And then I set a timer for 5 minutes, and he was screaming. So this was the longest 5 minutes of my entire life, let me tell you. After the 5 minutes was over, I went in, and I wasn't overly warm. I just went in, I picked him up, I held him up nice and high so he wouldn't go for the breast. I rubbed his back, and I just said, Wilson, you're doing such a good job. I hate letting you cry, but you're learning how to sleep on your own, and you're such a good boy, and this is going to get easier. And then I laid him back in his crib. He started crying again. I gave him his teddy bear, and I walked out the door again. And I forgot to mention, when you go in during the intervals to soothe them a little bit before you lay them down, don't put them anywhere near your breasts if you're breastfeeding. This also works for bottle feeding, but if you're breastfeeding, just keep them up nice and high, and don't stay in there for any more than a minute. That's really important. Just go in there for 1 minute, maybe a minute and 30 seconds tops, and then get out. I walked out again, and then I set the timer again for 5 minutes. This time, towards the end of the 5 minutes again, he kind of stopped crying for a little while, and then he started up again. So I stretched it out to almost 7 minutes. Well, I decided I was going to stretch it out to almost 7 minutes, and by the 6th minute, he fell asleep, and he slept for 5 hours. That was the first night. So when he woke up after 5 hours, I'm trying to think about what time that was. So that was, let's say, the first time he actually fell asleep was 8 o'clock, or somewhere around, let's pretend it was 8 o'clock, I don't even exactly remember. But so he slept from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1. So he slept until 1 a.m. And because not only was I sleep training him, but at the same time I was not feeding him overnight anymore, I decided if he woke up any time after 1 a.m., I would give him something to eat, instead of just cutting him off cold turkey. So after the 5 hours when he slept, I picked him up at 1 a.m. I sat in the chair, I fed him a little bit, but same thing, I didn't feed him to sleep. So I fed him until he was really drowsy. I laid him in the crib. He started to cry. I walked out the door, and this time he only cried for probably about 3 minutes, and then he slept until, I'm going to say 7 in the morning. So that was the first day. Now, I do know people who have had these results and better, and then I have another friend who did the same thing as me, and what she decided to do was, because it just wasn't working for her, I think she ended up doing like letting the baby cry for 10-minute intervals, and it lasted like for an hour, and she was just like, this isn't working. And what she realized is when she went in and picked up her baby, she was making the baby more upset. So I think what she did is she just went in and kind of rubbed the baby's back in the crib, because at this point they still are laying down. Now the second time I had sleep trained my baby, he was a toddler, so that wouldn't have worked out for me because he was just standing up holding on to the rails crying, but I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, my friend decided, no, I can't pick the baby up, it's just too hard on her, so she just went in and kind of rubbed her back for a minute and then would leave and let her cry, and that worked for her. But anyway, so this has worked for a lot of people. But okay, so that was the first day. I'm just getting excited. I'm all over the place. I'm fired up. So then the second night, I did the exact same thing. I gave him the bath, I put the lotion on, jammy, sat him in the chair, kept the light on, kept him upright, and I just talked to him. Or you could read a book to your baby, just as long as you're not like rocking them to sleep. So then, same thing, I picked him up, I rubbed his back, I put him in the crib, I told him I loved him, gave him his teddy bear, walked out, let him cry for 5 minutes. So that night I only had to do 2 intervals, and by the second one he cried for 2 minutes and he fell asleep. The third night I did everything the same, and I laid him down, and get this, he cried for 2 minutes and he fell asleep, and he slept for the entire night. Now that was just the third night. That is not extremely typical. Most people say it takes about 4 to 5 days for that to happen. But really, when you think of it, 4 or 5 days of suffering for months of your baby sleeping 10 to 12 hours through the night is worth it. So yes, after the 3 or 4 days for us, my baby started sleeping through the night. And by the 5th night, he did not cry when I laid him in the crib. I would lay him in the crib, I would give him his teddy bear, and he would hug it, and I'd walk out the door and he would just fall asleep. And he did that for 4 months until he had a sleep regression. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. So then everything was going great. He was sleeping like 10 to 12 hours every single night with no problems. I would lay him in his crib awake and he would fall asleep, which I never in a million years would believe people if they told me they did that. I was like, no, that's a lie. Like, you can't just lay your baby in a crib awake and they fall asleep. But it's not. It was awesome. And then I would say around 11 months, he went through a sleep regression, and he also had a really bad cold where he was really congested. So those 2 things together kind of happened. I actually went back to work too when I was working back shift, so my husband was home by himself at night. Just all those things were kind of going on at once, and we got really slack. So he wasn't feeling good, so there was nights that one of us would feed him to sleep. He would wake up in the middle of the night, and instead of me laying in bed and just kind of waiting for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to see if he would fall back asleep, he'd start crying, and I would just go in and get him, or my husband would go get him, because he had a cold and he was stuffed up and we felt bad. So we'd take him in the bed with us, and then that led to us like taking him in the bed a couple times a night and giving him a bottle, because, you know, we felt bad for him. And then I honestly feel like we taught him the bad habits again. So we taught him again that he needed us to come and snuggle him and give him a bottle or the breast to fall asleep. So then his sleeping got really bad again. And it got to the point where he was up every 2 hours again, like a newborn. And this is the question I have for myself. I should have known better. I should have known exactly what was happening, and I should have known that I should just go back to the sleep training. But, you want to clap your hands? But it took me a couple of months to come to that realization and decide to do it again, because it was hard the first time. So then at around, I don't know, 12 months, like just around when he turned a year. Is your belly sticking out in the video? You have spaghetti on your pants. Around the 12-month mark, I just started the process all over again, and he got along even better the second time. I was bottle feeding him at this point, so I'd give him his bottle with the little lamp on, and at this point he was kind of starting to get more interested in storybooks, so I would read him a story and he would kind of play with the pages. And then when he started to get really sleepy and he pushed the bottle away, or when the bottle was finished, I'd walk him over to his crib, I'd pick him up, I'd rub his back, I'd lay him in the crib. I did everything the exact same way I did the first time. Hi! But this time something really adorable happened. After, let's say, the 3rd day, when he was done drinking his bottle, he would actually reach over to his crib and do this, like this. I don't know if you can see my hand in the shot, but like almost like, I want to go in there, like put me in there, waving at the crib. And then I would lay him down and he'd fall asleep, and he's just doing so good. He's 14.5 months now, so it's been 2.5 months again of him sleeping through the night, and it just makes such a huge difference in our lives, and he's just so much happier. And oh, he's yawning now. All the talk about sleeping, eh? He's just so much happier. The last thing I'm going to say before I end the video is that, because some people are like, oh, what about naps? So when I first did the sleep training, I didn't do it for naps at first because like it was still daytime and he was just too stimulated. So I actually did still feed him to sleep for his naps. And then once he had the nighttime routine just down pat, then I started doing the exact same thing for naps. And because he was already used to doing it in the day, he got along great. Can you wave for the camera? What's this? Look. Hi. He got along great with the naps too, but it just took a little bit longer. Hey. But it was good. So anyway, that's my sleep training story. I hope this video was helpful. I think I am going to post it just because you're in it and you're so cute. I hope this video was helpful. Just post any questions or comments below and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. My channel is new and I'm not by any means like a YouTuber. I'm just kind of doing this as a fun hobby. And I started out by posting curly hair videos, and I think I'm going to continue on with my curly hair videos, but I might start with some mom videos, and I really do plan on when I get pregnant again, and yes, I'll be getting pregnant again hopefully in the next few months, let's say 6 months, I'm going to document my pregnancy, so like weekly, and I think that'll be really fun too, hey. So yeah, shout out to Mom Chat. And please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video, which is another curly hair.